the rise of the Titans, and perhaps the last stand of the Pats. And here's what's amazing about this, and you gotta know that this is the deal because we've seen it for 20 years. Nobody removes so callously sentiment from important decisions like the Pats.
Yes.
Now, because of the inexplicable loss to the Dolphins in Week 17, if the Pats are fortunate enough to move on to the divisional round, they're not playing at Gillette.
No.
So without a contract for Tom Brady, we are staring at, for 2020, we are staring at the very, I think you can frame it as a strong possibility that this is his final game at Gillette Stadium.
Yes, likely. Because even if they do win, and even if they get to the Super Bowl, they're not coming back to Gillette.
But I'm implying that that means he's not coming back next season.
Yes, I know. But,
Okay.
but let's stay in the present right now.
Yes.
Because the story all week around this Tennessee Titans New England Patriots game is the end of the dynasty happening? Will we see it happen? Because let's not forget, you mentioned they're playing in the wild card round. They haven't done this in a long time. You got to go back to 2009, the last time they played in a wild card game. So it's been a decade. They lost that game. So they get to the Super Bowls. They've gotten to many of them. In fact, they've played in every AFC championship game since 2010. Think about that. It's like nuts to think about that.
Well aware.
Every single AFC championship game they've been in this decade. And so, well, excluding this one. And so, like this is uncharted territory for the New England Patriots. And Tom Brady's 42 years old. He's got a little bit of a creaky elbow. The offense, which started the season as, first 5 or 6 games, #1 scoring offense in football. Yeah, they're compromised. They don't have Gronk. They don't have all these other pieces anymore, but they got a stout defense that scores and turns the ball over, and they're going to blow you out anyways. They don't need greatness on offense. They're going to blow you out anyways, but very slowly and surely they come back to the mean, and the rest of the division starting to catch up a little bit. The Browns or the Bills hung with them a couple of times. The Miami Dolphins beat them at the end of the season to take away their bye week in the postseason. And so the vulnerability of the Pats is real right now. But I can't help but question our doubt, because we've had this doubt so many times.
Not like this.
I agree.
Doesn't mean we'll be right, but not like this.
But so many times we've had this doubt. But I have to believe that coaching accounts for something. And experience in the second season, where the intensity truly drives to the ceiling, it counts for something. And so while I can point to all these reasons why Tom Brady's not going to get it done, I can look at the head coach, I can look at the offensive coordinator and the defensive scheme. They're still the #1 defense in football, and say, I'm not going to be surprised if we find them in the AFC Championship again.
Okay, who was the head coach this past weekend against Miami? Who was coaching the Pats that week?
that was his boy.
Was that Belichick?
No,
who's the Pats quarterback? Pats head coach. Not Flores. Who was the Pats quarterback? Who was the Pats head coach?
It was Belichick.
Who was the Pats quarterback?
Tom Brady.
Who was the Pats coordinators? Same guys,
Josh
right?
McDaniels.
Okay.
I actually don't know who their defense coordinator
is. It's basically Belichick at this point. I say that because I hear you. It is dangerous. It's dangerous to jump off this yacht that has just been floating in beautiful sun-drenched waters for 20 years.
That's nuts.
In the NFL. I mean, 20 years in the NFL is like 30 years in baseball. Think about how long Jeter played, and think about some of the great dynasties in baseball, whether it's the Reds, the 70s, or the Yankees a few times, or the Dodgers, or whomever. I mean, there's a carryover, far longer roster continuity than there is in football. What the Pats have achieved is absolutely amazing. But I say, who was the head coach this past weekend? Because that was a playoff game. That was a playoff game.
Yeah.
Let's not fool ourselves. That was a playoff game.
Yeah, in a sense it was.
That was a playoff game. They walked out of that tunnel knowing, if we win this game, we have a bye and we have a home game. And if we walk off this field the loser, conversely, we're playing next week and we ain't playing at home in the divisional round. And they are smart enough to compute that. The thing is, they're no longer good enough to make it happen.
Well, I mean,
at least in terms of
First of all, let's give Brian Flores a ton of credit.
We have.
Because we've said this all year. Brian Flores could have laid down.
Sure.
And the Miami Dolphins could have gone 0-16, and we would have said, Good job, Brian Flores. You got the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft, right? No matter what he did.
I don't know, but if they continued at that first 3-game rate when they were outscored by 197 points, I don't know if we would, even though they got the first pick. I know you say that with a smile, but
it jokingly.
We might be saying maybe Flores shouldn't be back to cash in on that #1 pick.
But we all witnessed what happened. Through the first quarter of the season, they were god-awful. Like, the Miami Dolphins didn't belong on an NFL field the first 4 weeks of the season. And then it started to flip a little bit. You're like, man, they played that team pretty close, right? Yeah, they lost, and they're not in danger of making the postseason, but they're playing hard. They're playing tough. Ryan Tannehill is not Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Fitzpatrick is not done yet. And all of a sudden, they win a game, then they win another game, and before you know
after they traded players, by the way.
Exactly. They clean house. Yeah. We're starting over. We're starting from the bottom, and we're coming up from there. And they started fighting, and they started winning games, and they started getting close and not getting blown out. And Brian Flores has created a culture in a like 6 months where some people can't do it in 2 years, right? He created a culture in Miami in 6 months, and then he gets to the ultimate game of the season, Week 17 against the New England Patriots, a team he knows very, very well. And by the way, they weren't supposed to win that game. The Pats had it in control. Right? And then Ryan.
And they allowed them to go 75 yards down the field with 30 seconds to go.
Does what Fitzmagic is want to do sometimes. There's a reason that we give him that moniker.
But he's still the 37-year-old journeyman who's played on 9 teams.
He set an NFL record for most yards to start a season.
Yeah, but yards mean nothing anymore. I'm not trying to. Listen, he's a tough kid.
Yes, they do.
Nah, they don't. Anybody can throw for yards.
You throw for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns in 3 straight games to start a season last year? That's a big deal.
Tiki's been on more teams than he hasn't been.
It doesn't matter.
I'm not saying I don't respect the guy, but come on.
My point is, Ryan Fitzpatrick is not a washed-up quarterback. He's not dude, they have no chance. Oh, they got Duck Hodges in a quarterback. They had Gardner Minshew.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that.
He is a guy who can win a football game if you give him a chance. The New England Patriots, for whatever reason, defensively got compromised against the Miami Dolphins in the second half of the fourth quarter last weekend, and the Dolphins came down and beat them. Right? It wasn't like the Pats laid down. They had the game, it felt like, in hand. The Miami Dolphins, to the credit of Brian Flores, came and snatched it from him with Ryan Fitzpatrick. So I'm saying, give the Miami Dolphins some credit.
I am.
For winning a game on any given Sunday.
Okay.
But it's not an indication that the New England Patriots aren't ready to do what they always do in the postseason.